Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of the podcast, which now has a name. What progress we're making.
Indeed.
Fintan, welcome back to Only Fools and Scorers. We are the Fools, and we'll be bringing you lots of scorers this week. More scorers.
And lots of goals. Mate, I just want to start off by saying I'm very proud of you because in the past I've accused you of being a glory hunter. You're one of those fans who go missing after bad results. You've come on here today rocking your Manchester United Adidas tracky top after arguably the worst result since Man United lost 6-1 to Man City at home. But this just felt even worse.
This might be the worst result
game of football I've ever seen from anyone, I think.
This might be the worst game in the history of Manchester United Football Club. This genuinely might be, in my mind, I'm hoping this is rock bottom. This has to be absolute rock bottom because, like you say, it can't get worse than 6-1 at home to Tottenham Hotspur, who admittedly...
Managed by Jose Mourinho, which just makes it so much sweeter. I honestly would imagine that Mourinho, instead of watching any form of porn for the rest of his life, will just whack on that game and watch it back to back to back. What a result for him. I didn't know if we were going to talk about it straight away, but I'm pretty happy to.
What yeah, I mean, I
do
just
feel?
Get into it.
I'll be your therapist for a few minutes.
I've been through the last, since yesterday, obviously joy. We were 1-0 up inside a minute, don't forget. Just to disbelief, shock, anger, rage, confusion. And now I'm just kind of like, I feel very numb. Obviously, we're recording this on transfer deadline day.
Jadon Sancho still coming, Spraggy? Do we believe 90% club?
Sancho is, and I said, as I just said before we got on air, I still, for some reason, believe that Sancho could happen. But we'll see. By the time most people listen to this, you guys, I guess, will live in the future where you know. But listen, let's go back to the events that unfolded yesterday. Manchester United 1, Tottenham Hotspur 6. And I tweeted out, obviously, the famous line, Fergie in the dressing room.
Tottenham.
Lads, it's Tottenham, right? And that mentality shift from Manchester United, the most successful, biggest, greatest club on this planet, have gone from lads, it's Tottenham, to losing 6-1 at home to a team that, oftentimes when you've talked in the past about Manchester United's runs, certainly in the Sir Alex Ferguson era, but even afterwards, right? Even in sort of Moyes, Van Gaal, it was always... and Mourinho, it was always dips in form. It was always, we'll be back. We're still challenging top 4. We've had bad results. And what is this result? What is that result? This really was a result that we should not be particularly... It's shocking, but the defeat is not shocking. Losing at home to Spurs is no longer shocking. That's no longer really an upset.
I mean, you lost to Palace at home. You've lost your... I didn't actually look this up. But I would imagine it's been a long time since United lost their first 2 Premier League home games. I would not be surprised if it's never happened. But even in the league, to lose your first 2 games at Old Trafford, like that's insane carry on for a team that are meant to be challenging, going places, you know?
Yeah, and the stat yesterday was it was the first time we've conceded 2 goals in the 3 opening games, first time since like the 70s. Record. It's like a record-breaking,
you don't want to be
terrible start to the season. I mean, we're only 3 games in. But here's the thing, like I say, it has gone from these being shock results or these being unfortunate results or dips in form to this is where we are. This is where the club is. And Maguire and Bailly yesterday, and to a lesser extent, Shaw, Wan-Bissaka, I mean...
It was an embarrassment.
But it was
an actual embarrassment.
People talking about Maguire playing for England. He wouldn't get into the Faroe Islands starting 11 at the moment, mate. I don't... Obviously, he has this thing over the summer with the whole court case going on in personal life. But
I don't think it's just that.
Right, but he's not there in a footballing sense, and he has whatever going on in his private life. You're playing for Manchester United. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. Like you have to, if a club signs you for £80 million and you're on X amount of whatever disgusting 6-figure sum he's on every week, you have to play like an £80 million defender. He's not doing it. Bailly yesterday, Bailly given the slop giveaway for whatever goal it was, 3rd goal. Just beyond imagination. The 2nd goal, right? I managed to return reserves.
Where Maguire pulled him down?
Maguire comes out like 40 yards out of centre back, pulls him down in the middle of the park. Now, I managed Tetbury Town reserves, Fintan, in the 17th tier of English football, as you well know, for a short period of time. And basic stuff, everyone who plays in that side for Tetbury knows if there's a free kick in a dangerous area, you stand on it.
Stand over the ball.
You stand over the ball.
Stand over the ball.
You do whatever nonsense needs to happen so that doesn't get taken quickly. Both Bailly and Maguire were stood on top of the ball. And they're both just like and iron and throwing their hands in the air. And Harry Kane, who is apparently the world's greatest assister in the history of football, who has like 40,000 assists already this year, slams the ball down, bang, straight through. An incredibly good touch by Son, and then bang, 2-1. But it's like, it's basic errors that I don't care if you're whatever.
Do you think, right, so you're saying they're basic errors. Do you think it falls on the player, or do you think at this point that Solskjaer needs to take some blame? And Solskjaer should now be under pressure, because you obviously had a very solid end of the season. There was a lot of optimism going into this transfer window that you would get the targets that would maybe push you on. But at the same time, as much as people say Solskjaer hasn't been backed, he has an 80 million centre back that he bought. He has the most expensive right back, I think, ever bought. He has a midfielder in the centre of the park that he's just bought for 55 million. He has a world record breaker in Pogba in the midfield. He has apparently one of the best goalkeepers in the world, even if he's got shaky form in the gate. Their front three are being talked and touted about as the potentially best front three in Europe over the next 4 or 5 years. So whilst I do think that United needed to sign players and sign them quicker, and the management behind the football club is shambolic, and they 100% need a director of football, and it just can't continue that way. But do you think, given all that, it still needs to fall on Solskjaer that he should be doing better coaching wise? Because last year you got third, but you got 67 points, which is probably like one of the lowest totals. Third place finish in a long time.
Okay, so there's obviously a lot to go into there. I mean,
yeah, of course.
Ultimately, yes, because ultimately results on the field. Whilst I do think yesterday there was an exorbitant amount of individual errors. And you can't. What's Ollie gonna do, right? He can't pull his besides pull his boots on and do it himself, right? You can't legislate for someone not standing on top of a free kick. Maguire yesterday marking at the back by giving things away. Pogba, I mean, obviously the game's gone, but at 6,
that penalty.
Pogba slid in from the Trafford Centre for that. He's on his back for 10 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, but that's a World Cup winning central midfielder who is supposedly one of the best players in the world. And he's doing something that when I was manager at Tetbury, I'd be mad.
He would have whipped someone off.
He's sliding in, and it's like, it's a carelessness, it's a recklessness, it seems to be like a lack of attitude or something within the team. And we spoke about it briefly on last week's episode about that like winning spine, you know. That like,
do you think, right?
That like Neville Keane something, okay. Right? You know that thing.
Absolutely, of course. But yesterday I was discussing with my friend who's Irish, and of course we have a bias towards anyone who shows any potential. But Roy Keane was one of the genuinely world-class talents that we had, and arguably the greatest Premier League leader that was ever to be. He was unbelievable leading the team. Do you think even just adding Keane to that team in his prime would be a complete turnaround in the fortunes? Like, do they just need that leadership? Because I don't see leadership out of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He seems like he's your mate. He seems like he's not going to put the pressure on. Like, I just think one Roy Keane. I would argue that not many Premier League teams have a player like Roy Keane anymore. It's a different generation. Maybe it's just harder to find those players. Henderson might be the closest thing to it.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if there's a. The thing is, this. I think there's a difference between good leadership, which still exists in the Premier League, on a different level to what Keane was. Keane was
the war.
He was an enforcer, wasn't he? He was if you don't play, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get you playing. Whether that's, you know, he was a very, very intimidating figure. So I think we see leadership in today's game in a different manner. But you're right. Without knowing the United dressing room as intimately as we, you know, whatever, as intimately as we're able to, like, I don't see it on the pitch of someone who's like picking people up, grabbing people up, you know, and saying fight for, you know. And it goes back to even the red card, and we'll get to the red card yesterday.
Honestly, I was going to say it in a moment. The fact that you have ranted and are as upset about the result as you are, even though it was 2-1 at the time when the red card happened, and of course it's a big turning point, but United looked shaky, and even though you scored so quickly, Tottenham legitimately looked like they were going to score every time they went forward, and
Yeah,
you
and
just looked like an absolute shambles.
I think, listen, just quickly onto the red card. I think that lack of leadership is demonstrated in the fact that there was very little remonstration with the referee. There was back in the day, and as bad as this might sound, if there had been a decision like that, you'd have had Keane and Yapstam and people like
Giggs,
that, and Giggs
Beckham,
and
even
Beckham
Giggs,
and
Beckham, all
Neville,
of them,
and
Solskjaer.
a wall around the referee. And I get it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's taken out of the game. But yesterday, people standing around like, oh well, if he's off, he's off.
Martial didn't even
he was just
go
like
to the ref. You should stand on the sideline. Like,
right now. And if you look at that decision now, let's deal with the decision, because
decision.
I don't want to get into a real further VAR thing. There was also a handball given on the edge of the box where Luke Shaw, someone was 3 yards away from him, and his arm was on his belly, on his stomach, on his and bang, and it's handball again. Ludicrous. The VAR decision completely unfit for purpose, because I tweeted out yesterday at Spraggy. You have a video, and I saw it. I saw Lamela elbow behind like that, or arm behind like that, and catch Martial in the face. I then saw Martial sort of reach around and tap him, slap him, which you can't do. You can't react.
It's so
very
dumb.
stupid. But there's a video of Lamela hitting him, and then he hits him back. And at the same physical level of physical contact, Lamela goes down like he's been shot, which is absurd in and of itself. But again, I can't be mad at Eric Lamela, because if the referees are so easily tricked that the guy going down means that you get the other guy sent off, unfortunately, that's the way you have to play the game. I cannot believe that a refereeing, and not even one referee now, a video referee as well, and a referee on the field, I cannot believe that they can be deceived by whatever's happened, and they don't watch the video and go, oh, I saw it, you saw it, everyone at home sees it. Oh, Lamela hit him there. So do they see that and they ignore it?
What I think
what's gone on there
is the issue with the VAR is if the referee seen Lamela's movement where he brushes off his chest or whatever, you're not allowed to overturn what you potentially see as a yellow card decision, or if it's not clear and obvious. So maybe he should have just went straight to the VAR rather than sending Martial off, right?
Sure.
And just being like, I need to go look at this. I need to ask.
Sure. So don't make a decision in the moment.
If the rule is you can't overturn it unless it's clear and obvious, because is it clear and obvious? I think it's clear and obvious that Martial shouldn't have been sent off. But if you apply the letter of the law, right, you could argue that he should have been sent off. But then is it clear and obvious that there was a mistake with Lamela? But neither of us think Lamela should have been sent off, right?
Yeah, so that's not clear and obvious.
It's just a weird thing where he's given the red card, and maybe the VAR aren't allowed to overturn it if he has seen it. And I think it's ridiculous. I think it was an outrageous decision. I think it's pathetic from Lamela. I understand. I hate that they reward that acting. I even hate like when a player's going through on goal and he gets clipped, but he does really well to stay on his feet and he misses his chance. It's like, if he had went down, it's a guaranteed penalty.
Right. So the refereeing should be in place where no matter the reaction, it's the action that is punished.
Yeah.
It encourages that behavior from Lamela.
Of course.
Which is absurd, because it makes the game into a circus.
Yeah. Of course. And if you're the manager of a team, you could argue that you want it to be, played the beautiful way that it was meant to be brought up. But like, there's a lot of money on the line. There's jobs on the line. Is Mourinho going to be mad that he got Martial sent off? Like, I don't think so. I
don't think you can be. As I say, unfortunately, that's the way the game has to be played. So aside from the ridiculous VAR decision, I actually think that it was not a lot in it. I think it was take a look at the incident, bring both players together, tell them to grow up, get on with the game. It's 2 red cards or it's no red cards. But aside from that, I don't want to spend too much on that, as absurd as it is, because that's the sort of thing that eventually is going to quote unquote even out.
Well.
There are systemic issues at Manchester United that show no sign of abating. It's transfer deadline day today, and we briefly touched Sancho. That's not happening. Even if it does,
what do you think?
That's
what
not
do you
the
think
problem.
Of Cavani?
I can't imagine it's going to be a success. It looks like Falcao 2.0 to me.
2.0, yeah. He's better. He is better than Gallo. But the issue that I have with United signing Cavani is that he's been a free agent all summer.
Right, but that's it. It's a clear panic.
Yeah, and there's no structure. There's no planning. They've got to this point. Maybe there's some degree of Gallo scored a lot of goals when he got given the chance last year, and this year he just doesn't seem as sharp and on it. He seemed like a very good sub last year. So I think he is an upgrade on Gallo, but it's just like, why are they waiting to the last minute? Maybe it's because they can drive down wages, they can drive down agents' fees, and of course, like at the end of the day, Manchester United is a business, but it feels like the fans are being cheated and robbed, given how much money is coming out of that football club from the Glazers and how much money it generates. Because for years it's been the number one club in terms of revenues, and then just not be able to sign a left back that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wanted weeks ago for the sake of a couple of €1 million. And don't get me wrong, it's a lot of money in real life, but we're not. That's not real life. It's a,
Sure, 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 sure.
just get the players in, give them a chance, and
Yeah, and we've signed Tellers now, who
the
to
left
me
back,
looks like it wasn't our first choice.
Seems like Reguilon that ended up
Reguilon
at
was the
Tottenham.
one,
But that was
that we
different
wanted.
issues. I think that might have been the Real Madrid wanted to buy back United won't give it. And to be honest, I can understand that. But yeah, where do you think this season goes? Do you see it being salvaged? Do you think there's any
Well,
way
we've got numerous
hangover?
There's numerous things that could happen now. Obviously, we're on deadline day. There is movement. We've signed a couple. Looks like we've signed Traore, young 18-year-old. Tellers coming in. Cavani coming in.
And change the team though.
But again, Tellers is not going to come in. Oh, we're winning games. It's not like Fernandes, Bruno ended last season, right? Like he came in, we started winning games because he was pulling strings, right? Left back's not going to do that for you. Maybe it shores us up a little bit. This young lad, Traore, is 18. There was talk of another Uruguayan winger who
I think he's 16 though.
Yeah, exactly. It's youth prospects. And Cavani, the signing, which they're trying to pass off as like the flagship signing of the summer that we've signed Cavani.
Yeah.
It's old. It's outdated.
7 years ago, you signed Cavani, and it's like, ooh.
And again, it really points to the systemic problem of we don't have a plan. If you're signing Cavani on the final day of the transfer window, that's, oh shit, we've not signed anyone, let's sign Cavani. That's not his 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 2 seasons. You know what I mean? That's not investment with a structure, which has been our undoing in the past. See Falcao, see whoever.
Yeah.
So there was a very telling moment yesterday, actually, for me, at halftime, believe it or not, where, and this is going to sound really potentially silly, but I think it's like it's a mentality problem that I think for me kind of proved that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, as much as I love him, and as much as I think a lot of this blame isn't on him, in that players aren't performing, individual errors, just, a lack of direction from above, transfer policy is not right, whatever, the Glazers aren't, obviously it's just borderline ridiculous the way the club is run for a club that size, but Sir Alex Ferguson's whole mentality was always that United should play a certain way, United should entertain fans, United should never quit, we should never give up, no matter what. And if anything else, I remember so many times you hear interviews where people said, he's a guy watching football on the sidelines for whatever reason, at least entertain him, at least play with a bit of passion, at least try and take people on, at least try and score goals, whatever, score some goals for me, So yesterday, we're 4-1 down at halftime, and the game is decidedly over. It's done. We're 10 men, we're 4-1 down. I get it, there's no way back in, and it may seem weird that this is the moment where you think there's a problem, but at halftime, we took off Fernandes, and we brought on defensive-minded players. We had Van der Beek on the bench, didn't come on.
We brought on Fred.
And we brought on Fred, and I believe someone else defensive-minded. And to me, that was Solskjaer worried about losing 7 or 8-1. That was we don't want to lose 7 or 8-1. And I genuinely think if that was Fergie in charge, or someone with that mentality of, if at least try to win every single situation, and if not, entertain and attack them, and if we concede another 3, it doesn't matter because 4-1 is 7-1, right? It's the same thing. Like, it's goal difference, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, 4-1 is 7-1. At least roll some dice. To me, that was Solskjaer caving and thinking, I don't want 6 or 7-1. I think Fergie would have thrown a couple attacking players on and say, we'll play whatever at the back and at least try and score. If we lose 8-3, we've watched some football. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That to me really spoke to Solskjaer's scaredness, his fear, his conservative, and fear of headlines, fear of damage control.
I think social media changes that though, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I completely agree with you that Fergie had that more fearlessness. And like Fergie had some shocking results over the years as well, but he always like bounced back, got back like pretty much straight away. He never had like a really long period of like this terribleness that United have at the moment. But I think it's just different in social media, because if you lose 8-1, 9-1, like all the memes, people calling for your head, more direct access to the people who matter. Like back in the day, lads in the pub would be screaming at the TV, they'd be talking to their mates or like, at football, but they didn't really have a way of getting their voice here like they do now, besides a few club meetings with the director of football and whoever else, the manager, maybe a couple of players a year. Whereas now, like, Ed Woodward and whoever else are making the decisions at Manchester United will have a general feeling of how the fans are feeling pretty quickly. And I'm sure they have social meetings during the week where they're like, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's a little bit different, but I do agree with you that it was him saving face. I don't know if it's the wrong thing to do, though. Like, I agree that Fergie would have went the other way, but I don't know. Like, losing 9-1 is not the same as losing 4-1. Really.
Losing 9-1 isn't... Well, here's the thing, right? We're poker players, so we look at things in terms of, like, stats and EV, whatever, decision-making. It kind of is. 4-1 and 7-1... If you consider
when Man United lost the league by one goal on the last day of the season,
okay,
like Sergio Aguero went in and banged it in, and it was 1 goal difference. Do you remember that? It makes a difference.
It does. Yeah, I know.
Aston Villa had an extra point last year because we had a better goal difference. It does make a difference. I know you can like be romantic and be like, nah, it doesn't, but it really does. Like, things can happen with goal difference. It happens.
Sure. I get that, but for me, it was just like an ethos thing of. It just screamed fear. It screamed...
No, I agree.
I'm scared.
And he also... I would argue that Solskjaer has gone in there and attempted to bring back the Manchester United of times gone by and like spoke like he has the same values as Ferguson and, we're all about attack and we go out there and score goals. We do this, we do that. So I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised, man, if Fernandes was just going absolutely nuts in the changing room.
And pulled him off.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And he's just like, all right, mate, you can't be talking like that to everyone. Because, like,
but he should be. He should be.
That's I 100% agree. But he's the one player who will eat the head off a player on the pitch. Like, he's the leader. Like, I would make him captain of Manchester United, like, straight away. Take it off Harry Maguire. Like, he should not be the captain.
Yeah,
no chance. But anyway, let's not rant anymore about Harry Maguire. Let's move on. And let's have a little smile.
Well, just to round it out, I think Solskjaer's in big trouble and could potentially not see Christmas at this point. But yeah, on to Brighton news, Fintan. Some certain clubs. Now, this is the thing. I was done with football at that point, and I didn't watch the start of the Villa-Liverpool game because in my head I could not take any more punishment of a Liverpool victory. But alas, over to you.
Well, obviously, we had a couple of games at the start of the week where Aston Villa played Fulham and Liverpool played Arsenal, and Villa with their most comprehensive victory since last year when we beat Norwich 5-1.
You don't get to talk about this. Everyone beats Fulham. You beat Fulham.
Okay,
congrats.
No. My point is that it was an encouraging performance, and I was like, the first time I watched an Aston Villa game in a long time where we were always going to win the game. And Arsenal played against Liverpool, and Liverpool, I would argue, had their best game since they became champions because they've had a few dicey games in there. And Roy Keane, did you see the little moment after the game where he said some of the moments were sloppy and Klopp was already on the live feed?
Yeah.
See this?
No, I didn't see it. I heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was just like, "What did Mr. Keane say?" And like he was ready to go because Klopp was like, "That was an amazing performance. They were unbelievable." But they played this super high line, which brought us to this week, and it was Aston Villa versus Liverpool, and obviously, unbelievable result. We won 7-2. Ollie Watkins scored a hat trick. Jack Grealish scored 2, assisted 3. Ross Barkley scored, which it's still crazy to me to see Ross Barkley playing for Aston Villa. Like, when I consider 2 years ago, our club was on the verge of administration. Jack Grealish was about to go to Tottenham for £5 or £6 million, and we got saved. So all that stuff is mad to me. But I really like that our manager just stuck to his guns and played the long balls in behind, and we just played super attacking football. Will we have these results all the time? No. But everybody's talking about how bad Liverpool were. And don't get me wrong, if you lose 7-2, you were bad. But when Leeds got a draw against Man City, and when Leeds lost 4-3 to Liverpool, everyone was like, Bielsa's a genius. Greatest manager of our time. And don't get me wrong, I understand they're promoted. We have been in the Premier League for a year. But I don't think Villa are getting a lot of credit because we've won 7 out of our last 9 Premier League games and drawn the other 2, which is like better form than anyone in the league is going to be in. And to watch the game yesterday where when we went, this is like being an Aston Villa fan. We went in 4-1 at halftime, right? I have such PTSD from all of last season where we were beating Manchester United, lost the game, I think, or drew the game. We were beating Liverpool. They scored 2 goals after the 89-minute beat us. We were beating Arsenal. We lost the game. We were beating Tottenham on the first day of the season. We lost the game. So, like, I'm sitting in the bar with my friends, and they're like, are you going to send out a text? Because people were, like, firing tweets at me. Like, easy way to be buzzing. easy basis must be won. And I was just like, I couldn't do it. And then I think we went up 5-1, and I sent a little text, like, is it safe to send a text now? But then Mo Salah scored, and I was like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not sending messages.
Well, I mean, just last week, West Brom 3-0 up at halftime against Chelsea. It's the same thing, right? When you have a result like
especially
that
against Liverpool,
because they get one and there's a route back into the game. So I think, yeah, rightfully you're 4-1 up at halftime, but even in the back of my mind, because that's about the point where I was like, okay, maybe I ought to flick this game on. Even in my mind, it's like I was preparing myself for the misery of a Liverpool comeback, and but you were just good. Like you say, this was not. Obviously, Liverpool were exceptionally poor. That goes without saying. But Villa were and have been and look good. I think. What did you say? You've won 8 of your last 10 games, 2 draws. Back into last season, a remarkable run to stay in the league, and now chasing Champions League, of course, Villa.
Yeah. No. behave. But I honestly do think I was semi joking on Twitter, but like Ross Barkley missed 3 massive chances in the first half. Should have scored at least 2 of them. Like, they were sitters. Ollie Watkins missed 2 big chances, hit the bar. I honestly think we could have had double figures very easily. I really do. I think it's crazy to say, but like I think we could have scored 10 goals easily. But one thing that I kind of want to talk about, which is not just about this game, but obviously Thiago went down with the coronavirus. Now, he's only a new player to Liverpool, but he's still going to be clearly one of their first team players. Like, he's amazing. Mane was out with the coronavirus. Alisson was injured, which I think was a massive loss, but that was a muscle injury. I think he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. And Adrian obviously gifted us the first goal, and it just kind of set us up. And it was like, yeah, it was shambolic.
I mean, I've seen Liverpool fans on Twitter calling for Carriers to get back in the sticks, which, given his transgressions at that club, I didn't think I'd see the day. But yes.
Yeah, horrendous carry on. But I was just wondering what you think. Is there like a chance if things continue the way they're going? Because at the moment, if anyone has coronavirus, they have to quarantine or isolate for 2 weeks. They cannot see anyone. And obviously these players spend a lot of time together. Like, the current protocol and rules are there will not be games called off if players are missing. Now, obviously you can decide to forfeit a game, but I just don't envision that in a Premier League game where teams will forfeit a game. So how many players are we going to have each team potentially lose and the league will continue? Or do you reckon it's a slippery slope and there's a chance that even without the fans, even with all the tests they're doing on a daily basis to be able to like train together, play together, like, do you reckon that this is not going to be a season that we finish and it could just be another shambles?
I mean, listen, you never know what's going to happen. Just this weekend, there's a situation Juventus-Napoli. I'm not sure if you saw this at all.
No, I seen it. I didn't know what the final result was. I seen that Napoli were told not to travel, and I don't know if they not travel.
So Napoli were told not to travel by, I believe, like their local authority. The league rule is that if they have 13 players available, which I imagine includes young players and under 18s, whatever it is, under 21s, whatever it is, that the fixture must be fulfilled. So Juventus, getting ready for the game, posted their lineup on Twitter, preparing pre-match, but Napoli were at home in Napoli and haven't even travelled. And this game was supposed to go on under league regulations, but local authorities said that Napoli weren't to travel due to the restrictions for isolation and things like that. Now, I don't know, mate. I don't know. We could potentially be in a spot where games are going ahead under farcical conditions, where I don't know if it's 13 players have to be available. I can't see a Premier League team forfeiting before they put out 13 players, but are you going to end up with like a youth team squad going out there and getting hosed down 6 or 7-0? Now, is that good for the league? Is that good for those players? Is it good for anyone watching? Is it good for any situation? If we see 3, 4, 5 games like that, is there a point where they say non-viable, break?
Yeah. On a brighter note, though, Dortmund did have 11,500 people at a game yesterday.
They did, yes.
So there's both sides, right?
And fans are filling the stadium in America as well. They got like 30,000 at the NFL.
Yeah, but I'll take everything that happens over in America with a pinch of salt. I'm not going to use that as an indicator for what's to come or what to do. It's not what I'd be going for. But obviously, I really struggle to talk and big up Villa because it's been so dark for 10 years. So,
but Villa look in an amazing place, right? Like, they look in an amazing place. And Ollie Watkins obviously has joined from
I was bigging him up last week before he scored a Premier League goal. Like, I really believe that he's the best striker we could have possibly signed that
Sure.
would actually come to Aston Villa, and I'm really excited to see Barkley and Grealish. But Grealish, man, I'm like, England need to put Grealish in their starting 11, and I've been saying it for a while. He's only had like 15 minutes of international football. It'll be interesting to see what Southgate does with him in the coming games. It's funny, all this time I've been like, he needs to play, and now I'm like, I'd love if you just didn't play him in any of these games. But what he offers is just unbelievable. He already has 3 goals and 3 assists this year, and he just like pulls the team apart. And the only thing I want to talk about before we move on is that last year teams just doubled up on Grealish, and there was nothing we could do because we'd no one to pass to. There was no one that could do anything else. So Grealish would just get closed down. He'd win set pieces. We'd score some goals from set pieces. But now Grealish gets closed down by 2 people, and he just picks a pass into all the open space. And it's like Barkley's getting the ball, Watkins is getting the ball. We have Traore, who we've signed. Who else have we signed? I'm not 100% sure. Matty Cash right back, I guess, is the other one, and the keeper. But it's just a whole different prospect. And I don't know what the best that we can do this year is, but it's so hard to be optimistic as an Aston Villa fan when you've had a decade of like battling relegation, getting relegated, almost going to administration, and now for once there's optimism and hope, and it's like, I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, and I think you have every right to be, mate. I think you have a manager in charge who, like you say, is sticking by his beliefs, is not changing, and not making knee-jerk reactions. Has a long-term vision for the club, trusts in his players, believes in everything they're doing, and it seems that is passing through into the team now, and obviously bolstered by the fact that you had this miracle escape at the end of last season, and I think the quick turnaround from that has helped you. That this season is starting like
we
real
just
close.
Rode in with the momentum.
Because the players are up and playing well, and I think let's ask 2 quick questions. One, is this the most ridiculous result in the history of the Premier League? Middlesbrough 8, Man City 1. Remember that?
No, because that was a terrible Man City team. Like, that was
true. Obviously, it's an obscene result. Like, looking back with context now, but at the time, but I think this might be. It's got to be up there as
possibly
one of the most outrageous results in the history of the league. On a weekend that also saw Manchester United lose 6-1 at home.
Especially the way people were talking about Liverpool, because Liverpool were, after the United game, after City drew at Leeds and obviously got smashed by Leicester last week, everyone was like, they're just going to walk it.
Yep.
Like, it's over. And now it kind of feels like everyone could take points off everyone. And maybe there could be another Leicester situation, not with Aston Villa. I'm not going crazy or anything, but maybe with an Everton, maybe with Leicester, even though they just got spanked. It's crazy. What was the other question you had?
And the other question is, where do Villa finish now? Where do you anticipate finishing? Where would you be happy to finish at this point, given opening 3 games?
Given the investment that is going to come from the club, they've shown it, they've said it, they stick to their word. If we could just get a very comfortable 53, 54 points, which should be good for maybe like 10th, 11th. If we could do that, I think it would be a great achievement, because last year we obviously should have been down. Like, our odds of survival with like 4 games to go were like 4% or something. Like, we should have been gone. And if we could just keep building and seeing progress and, improving by buying players of Martinez's quality and Ross Barkley's quality, like, it's crazy to me that we've signed these players.
Yeah.
Like, it's just absolute madness. So if we could just push on, I thought there was no way that Jack Grealish stayed this year. And he said that he believed in the project that the owner said to him. He signed a new 5-year contract. Now, of course, that could be to protect his value and potentially sell him on if something arises. But if it's not, and he's like there for the long run, like, I'm super optimistic moving forward. I don't want to be like, oh, we're going to finish 6th. I don't think that. Like, I actually don't. Like, I think the teams that we're in European football, such as United, obviously City, are not even in the same league. But the clubs that have a little bit of a hangover from last year, I think will come good, and we'll see close to the same top 6, and then Everton and Leicester will be thereabouts. And I think it's very hard to push towards anything in the top half for this year.
Sure, it's a very competitive league, I would agree. Any other season, I think there's a better chance of you pushing, like really, really pushing on. But there's a lot of, I say there's a lot of quality.
Who are you pushing out though?
I say there's
like Arsenal look good, Tottenham look good, United are going to come somewhat good. Then there's Liverpool, City, Leicester, Everton. I'm definitely missing one of the bigger teams. Chelsea. So that's 8. Wolves looked incredible. They've signed a lot of players. That's 9 teams. Then you have Crystal Palace, who are definitely more secure than us.
Like I said, I think any other season, there is quality and teams are slipping up, but ultimately they're teams that are going to get points. Your Cities are slipping up, Liverpool slipping up, United obviously slipping over. But they're going to pick up points. They're going to be top 8, top 7.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to break through. But great start for Villa. So speaking of top teams slipping up, team at the top of the table not slipping up. Everton played 4, won 4, beat Brighton this weekend. Who again, just quickly, we did predictions the back end of last episode. We're not going to go over those today because this week of results is one of the most ridiculous weeks of football that there's ever been in the Premier League. So all of our predictions were off.
Did you ever see those shots where it's like Boxing Day 1954 and it's like all these scores?
Yeah.
Everyone's obviously a little bit pissed. They've all been having a few too many drinks for Christmas. They've all rocked up. It's just all the lads scoring like 9 goals. It felt like that. If people look at this in like 20, 30 years at those results from yesterday, like, excuse me?
What happened? So go ahead, Everton. Talk to me. Brighton. Talk to me.
I bigged it up last week that Graham Potter was the new Guardiola. He was the new Mourinho. He was the greatest manager to ever come into the Premier League. And then he went and got spanked 4-2 by Everton. But I watched the game and then I looked at the stats because I test man in pub, aka me, watching it. I was like, Everton are absolutely class. And I looked at the stats and Brighton had more possession. The XG was super close. It was 1.5 to 1.3 for Everton. But Everton looked so clinical. Every time they got the ball, I thought they were going to score. James Rodriguez playing for Everton is even crazier than Ross Barkley playing for Aston Villa. He was, like we talked about last week, a legitimate superstar. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think, has 8 goals now in 6 games.
Goal machine.
One of the things that gave me a good giggle was that the Everton fans hated Koeman as a manager. Like, they really thought he was terrible. Yeah. And now, of course, he's managing Barcelona. But 2 years ago, I believe it was against maybe Sunderland or Stoke. It was one of those teams in the League Cup. Like, Koeman played Calvert-Lewin at right back. And now it's just how can you have that disconnect? This man looks like he's going to score every week. Ancelotti came in and just believed in him, put his arm around the shoulder, stuck him up front. Moise Keane couldn't get a look in.
Moise Keane's gone now, by the way.
To PSG. Who is that man's agent, and could he get me a Premier League move? The man didn't play at all last season. It's like, oh, you want to go join a team that made the Champions League final, guaranteed to win the Italian League, and probably get paid even better and live in Paris? Sorry, excuse me, French League.
They're that good.
Unbelievable.
The French League's so bad, they win that on weekends, then play the Italian League on a Wednesday.
But I think Everton are going to challenge for top 4 this year.
Absolutely.
I think they've signed really well. They have Ancelotti, who is one of the best managers historically in the last 20 years. He's been unbelievable. I wasn't convinced when they signed him would he be able to do it. Not if he got the players, but he's just signed a brand new midfield that looks unbelievable. Like, the only issue I see with Everton at the moment, and I hate in a way, because I brought it up last week as well, but Pickford is not good enough to be a goalkeeper for a team that's going to be in the top 10 of the Premier League. Like, if we were offered Pickford for free, I would have legitimately been disappointed that we signed him instead of just sticking with our reserve keeper. And I know that's really lumping in on him, but he just looks terrible as a goalkeeper. Like, he's good with the ball at his feet, and I know that's the modern way that keepers need to be, and Southgate sticks with him, and he's had good moments for England, but he just is not good under a cross. He seems erratic. He seems very emotional for a goalkeeper. I know goalkeepers are always, they say, a little bit tapped and they need to be a little bit crazy. And
but no one's quite normal.
Pickford seems to just be highly strung on emotion at all time. And now I think his confidence is gone. And I think goalkeepers in particular, once their confidence is gone, it's a really hard position to turn it around, because if you mess up as a center back, you have the goalkeeper. You mess up as a midfielder, you have the defenders and the goalkeeper. But if you let the ball roll through your legs, let's say like Tahibi did back in the day, United versus Southampton, it's so hard to come back from that.
By the way, Massimo Tahibi was man of the match in his first game he played against Liverpool, and he was man of the match. And then his second
Chelsea
game
as well.
Yeah, and then against Southampton, he rolled 8 goals through his legs.
I was at that game.
I think it was actually lost 3-1, I believe. Was it 3-1?
No, it was 3-all. It was 3-all the Southampton Man United
was
game.
It?
I was at it. Yeah, I was at that game. I was a United fan until I was 8 years old. Don't tell anyone. And my poor dad hated United, and he had to go over and watch that game for my birthday. He brought me over.
United fan, were you?
Yeah, for a few years, yeah.
Young, naive Finty, eh? Well, you got out at a good time.
To be honest, I was a Peter Schmeichel fan.
Sure.
That's because I was a goalkeeper when I was a kid. But anyway, we're getting a little bit off.
We
But
digress.
I just don't know if you can have like look at the gay, right? It clearly was absolutely the best shot stopper in the world.
Yeah.
Went to the World Cup with Spain. That ball rolled past him from Ronaldo's shot from outside the box where he just like he just dissolved. It just like went through him. And
Yeah.
I don't think he's been the same since then. And it's once it stops becoming instinct and like as the ball I would guess is coming towards you, you obviously only have like split seconds anyway with how quick they're hitting it. But like if you're like, oh my god, I can't drop it, can't drop it, can't drop it, and then it's like it's playing on your mind rather than just doing everything that you've done for years and years. So I just think that if they are going to get to the top of the league, they're probably going to have to get rid of Pickford. Now it's that transfer deadline day. It's not easy to buy keepers that are going to be top 4, top 6. Like
Also, it's very tough. I mean, being a goalkeeper is a very psychologically intense position. As you said, if you're a midfielder, you've got the defense. If you're defense, you've got a goalkeeper. If you mess up as a goalkeeper, all you've got is the blame, right? It's very easy to we lost today because of you.
World,
yeah, we lost today because of you. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and he was effectively driven
Liverpool
out of the club.
Fans were legitimately calling for his murder.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they're scum of the earth that are doing that, and it's not a reflection on everybody, but it's just a time when like when your mistakes are made, it's just so amplified.
It's very easy to amplify from that position, but it's also a very difficult position to replace. And I think it's a very sort of important role within the team. Like that's again, a goalkeeper is is identity. It's one of the only positions where it's like you have your number one. There's your guy. You do not change him, and changing him is like it is a big deal.
Over the years.
Right, it just doesn't happen. So. And also we've seen, Chelsea spend a lot of money on a goalkeeper in Kepa, who
he's been having a nightmare.
Is having a nightmare at like 80 million or something like that. So it's a very delicate one.
Yeah.
And it's a very delicate one. And it's also one of those where how long do you stick around in dips of poor form? Is Pickford more than just poor form, like you say? Is it just a temperament thing that he's never going to...
doesn't look like a goalkeeper to me, man. He's honestly just too small. And I know that's like... Don't get me wrong.
Okay, so let's cycle off of this because I do think that Everton looked very good, and I know that it's kind of weird to gloss over this result a little bit, given that it is one that sees them go to the top of the league.
4 games out of 4.
4 games out of 4, and they look good for it. And Ancelotti said that their results should not be a surprise. But let's leave Everton for a minute, who I think are going to end up challenging for top 4. And probably like one of the more interesting teams to watch. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin looks excellent. I actually saw him linked briefly with a move to Manchester United.
Yeah, I did as well. And I thought it was crazy talk. I was
why would you leave? Why would you move down the table? Shows a lack of ambition. But let's move on to other goalkeepers because I watched in its entirety the Newcastle Burnley game, which in goal for Burnley, of course, Nick Pope, another
shocker
England international, who first half ball comes into him, knocks it out of feet, and gets shut down and clears but deflected and goes wide. A couple moments later, came ball played through. He comes way out of his area. It's headed past him and eventually shot off target. But the third goal in that game was another one where the ball rolls back into him, knocks the ball out of his feet, goes too far, gets caught, and Callum Wilson finishes the game, makes it 3-1. So I watched this game. St. Maximin looks very exciting. He's one of the. Do you know what he is? He's like a Pro Evolution Soccer player, or like, he dribbles.
He could be more of a Newcastle player.
Yeah, he's a Newcastle player. He's a Faustino Asprilla like maverick type. I love it. I think the league needs more plays with a fearlessness and attacking drive. Whenever he gets the ball, he's at players. He's running at players.
He gets
people are terrified of him. People are terrified of him.
And they should be. He's unbelievable at going past players. He's insane to watch. I love watching him. But it's a weird thing because clearly like he has these moments and they're unbelievable. He kind of reminded me a little bit of Adama Traore when he was at Aston Villa when I watched him last year, where he'd leave people for dead, but his end product was somewhat
lacking.
Wanting. Can he? I don't know enough about him. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't watch all the Newcastle games, so I'm not going to sit here and preach too hard. But can a player like that like go into a Man City team, a Liverpool team, or is he just too much of a Maverick? Is he just doing too much with the ball? Is he not playing the way they need to with the quick movement, the triangles, all that? But like, or
again,
is
I
he
don't
just
know if he does have that capped skill set, and I haven't seen enough of him. I know he's very exciting to watch, and like you say, I think there might be like a lack of end product there, but he scored a great goal, the opener.
It was unbelievable. It
Edge of the
reminded me
box
of Ibrahimovic's goal for Ajax. No, obviously it was from outside the box, so it wasn't the exact same. But the way he was just like dancing through players, and they were basically falling over, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a wonderful goal and an exciting performance. And Newcastle they look
I
good.
side
They
railed
look
you though.
solid.
Do you want to talk more about Pope? I hear.
No, I
I
mean
hear
the Pope thing was just more like a good, promising goalkeepers who, for whatever reason, have these games, and it is a big psychological effect, and it's very easy to all of a sudden call goalkeepers into question. But I thought it was just interesting that England sort of went from having a lot of goalkeeping prospects, and it was all looking kind of good.
I still think Dean Henderson is the
Dean Henderson's the one, I think. Yeah, but I mean Pickford at the moment is not there, and Nick Pope looks shaky, and I don't know. It's just odd. I want to touch briefly on the fact, and I don't think we want to delve really hard into all of the games this week. We did see another Sheffield United defeat to Arsenal. Again, who Arsenal are looking pretty good, are looking pretty solid. Probably not there in terms of a title challenge. Lost to Liverpool, but they're back on the right track under Arteta. It seems like moving in the right direction. But Sheffield United, who looked excellent last season, I want to bring this back to this Burnley Newcastle result. Sheffield United, who looked excellent coming up last season, look in big trouble. They've yet to get a point this season.
Scored one goal,
which was in this defeat. I was speaking to my good friend Chris Ribeiro, who's a childhood friend of mine. Ribs.
Yeah, of course.
And he is a former professional player. He's capped Welsh international. Played for Bristol City, Exeter, Scunthorpe. Had an injury earlier in his career, for those of you who don't know, and he was tipped to go on and he, potential move to Premier League clubs, and then got injured and never quite fulfilled his potential. Was forced to retire at 28. But he's saying, or we were having a conversation about these sides, your Burnleys, who have always stayed up, have always done well, and your Sheffield United, who last season did so well. And he said that a lot of these clubs, a lot of these teams, what they lack for in quality, they're drawing energy from the fans. And he said, as players, that's very, that's super important. He was saying, in terms of getting that energy and that drive to compete, he says so much of it when he was playing, and obviously speaking to ex-professionals and professionals, it comes from the fans. And I think that is especially true of a smaller quote-unquote club, no disrespect intended, like Sheffield United or Burnley, where there is a skill gap. There's definitely a disparity between them and top clubs in the Premier League.
The example and the meme that has gone for years is can they do it in a rainy night in Stoke, where the fans are absolutely on their back all the time. And I do think they played a big part. I went to a Stoke Villa game and it was a miserable experience. I was sitting in the away or the home end, and just listening to Stoke fans go for the whole game. So I could see that being a point, though. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and he's saying it's very important that these for these clubs that are underdogs, and a lot of their success, he believes, and I think there's definitely some truth in it, is you get driven on by your small, intimate, passionate fan base, and it's a sense of that underdog mentality, right? That grit and determination, siege mentality, especially in home games. And these games, they feel like training atmospheres, training environments. He says, I think it's no surprise that your Sheffield Uniteds and your Burnleys that previously have done fine, they're struggling this season because they're not as good as the teams they're competing against, and they don't have the fan base to drive that energy.
So this is obviously not really just about this game in particular or anything, but do you reckon the fact that there's no fans lends to, you obviously do think it leads to a more training ground atmosphere? Do you think that makes the strikers a little bit more relaxed because if they take on a shot, they miss, it's not as bad because the crowd aren't on their back? But then do you think that the defenders and the goalkeepers are just a little bit more relaxed and they're just not as on edge? And I know you don't want to be completely on edge and you want to have the composure and you want to be as professional as you can. But if you take too long on the ball, 50,000 people at St. James's Park, they are on your back. Get the ball out. Whereas there's no one screaming like that. So it's just I think a few of these errors are just there seems to be, I'm just basically what I'm getting at. There's so many more goals going in the Premier League right now. Uncomparable numbers to what we've seen in recent years. And I just don't think that is a coincidence, right? I think it's actually to do with something that's going on with the lack of fans, or
It's
it's
like
got to be, right?
it's like in boxing, right? You have like a big fight field. When you have like a UFC, there's like a big fight field. There's an atmosphere, and that sort of that adrenaline and that engagement, like you're switched on and you're focused in the moment. When you're sparring in boxing or whatever in training camps, and when you're in training games, it's very hard to get up for it, to really engage and have that focus. And I definitely think that is something that is playing into what we're seeing with performances from certain players or performances from certain teams, and obviously an increase in goals. I think you're right. I think there is something to do with goalkeepers and defenders perhaps switching off in this environment.
All right, we've been chatting a lot. I'm not sure exactly what the runtime's at, but
we're about 50 minutes in. We do need to talk about Leicester West Ham, because this is another pretty insane result. With Leicester, we were talking last week about definite contenders for top four, definite potential contenders for winning the league. Obviously, they had the win against.
Well, they spanked Man City.
Spanked them. And now they lose 3-0 to West Ham, who I thought were going to go down, but David Moyes is on Snapchat filters and Skyping in, and he's away from the pitch, and apparently they're world beaters now. And Mikel Antonio has scored the most goals since post-lockdown football.
There is a massive West Ham fan in my chat called Jamie, and I remember they were about to play someone, and West Ham were like, they're about to get relegated with us last season.
Yep.
And he was just like, we need to drop Antonio. He's the worst player I've ever seen play for us. And he just went in that game, like that night, and just banged in 4 goals. And ever since he banged in those 4 goals, he just looks like prime Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Just can't stop.
And it's really weird. And again, I don't know whether this is like a given where we're playing or what's going on, but there's no consistency to any of this. I mean, it's
crazy.
It's a sports better's nightmare, presumably. Like, nothing is as it seems. So West Ham look like they're going to be good enough to stay up, and Leicester, who last week looked incredible, and they're definitely going to win the league or challenge for the league. They've lost 3-0 to West Ham, a team touted for relegation. Southampton, West Brom. Danny Ings did not score. Fintan, we don't care.
Well, that's the only thing we care about West Ham, about Southampton. The 2 games that we definitely need to touch on briefly, and then we can end it, is obviously Man City played against Leeds and Chelsea played against Crystal Palace, and both games are pretty important. I would argue Frank Lampard really needed that result. Like, they won 4-0. Chilwell scored a goal, assisted a goal, had a clean sheet. I thought it was insanity in the current market to be spending £50 million on a left back who I personally thought was overrated every time I watched him. But that was the first big performance that Chelsea have had. The first half was a bit drab, wasn't great. But second half, they got going. They won 4-0. They spanked Crystal Palace, who have looked reasonable so far this season. I mean, they beat you. They gave someone a good game last week. I can't remember who it was. But the one thing, obviously, we can talk about Frank. He done all right. But the one point I want to know, because you were a manager, I watched Tammy Abraham try to whip the ball off Jorginho when it was 3-0. And do you think there's a place for that when it's 3-0? Or do you reckon that it's unacceptable behavior? You don't really believe in goal difference.
Unacceptable behavior. I don't believe in goal difference is a myth. Unacceptable behavior. I mean, listen, we just spoke earlier in this podcast about West Brom 3, Chelsea 3, Villa being 4-1 up and throwing games. And time and time again, you see teams against all odds come back. Now, for me, professionalism at all times until you win the game, right? So you're 3-0 up, sure. Are you going to win the game? 90-something% of the time. But here's the thing. If Abraham takes it and misses and something happens, anything happens, let's say even that it goes to 3-2 and the result then is like in doubt, is in jeopardy. It's such an unnecessary risk or headline or bad look or whatever, right? So to me, you have your taker takes it. Like, what's the point in having a taker? You have your taker takes it. And I saw at the end of the game, there was kind of a light-hearted interview where Lampard was saying, it's like, I've had a word with him and it won't happen again. But it didn't seem that serious. It's not that serious. And I don't think it's like calling into like the integrity of the cohesion between the team.
Well, I think,
I think it seemed like
I had Tommy was at Villa, and I hated the way he took penalties. They were always terrible. He did score a fair amount of them, but they weren't great. The one example that I can remember where I think it's okay is when Claude Makelele had never scored for Chelsea, and they'd already wrapped up the league.
Sure.
And they let him take the penalty. Then it's all right.
Sure.
I'm completely agreeing. I just think whoever your penalty taker, it can get dicey if like penalty taker 1 and penalty taker 2 aren't on the pitch and you don't have an assigned taker. But I think you should just, if you're a professional team, just have 7 people, and that is the order.
Yeah, it goes bam, 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 bam. It's not hard. It's not hard. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think just professionalism at all times. I get it. If you've already won the league, whatever. If you're 6-0 up, maybe with 2 minutes to play, whatever. But yeah, I mean, just do the job. Do the job.
We are about to be joined by a guest, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Dog.
Arlo.
Hi,
Arlo.
Big Villa fan.
What's up? All right, let's very quickly finish with the Man City Leeds game, and then I'm going to get out of here because I am moving home to Ireland in a couple of hours. And from now on, after this week, the podcast will come out on a Tuesday. But the last game, Leeds versus Man City. I read an article because I said last week that how bad is that audio in the background?
That's fine. We got an enthusiastic fan with us.
Okay, but I said last week that Pep Guardiola considered Bielsa like the biggest influence on his coaching career ever. So I was looking for like information and reading up, but apparently when he was still a player, he was so intrigued by Bielsa that he went off to a ranch in Argentina that was like 4 hours on a bus outside Buenos Aires and just sat there and talked football with him for 11 hours. So this is a man that claims that his career has been forged. I read a little bit more that they had a battle in La Liga where it was Espanyol versus Barcelona, and it went down as one of the best games that season because the Espanyol team were just so aggressive. They went forward, they never stopped. They ended up drawing 2-2 against arguably the greatest club team of all time with Messi in his prime, Xavi, Iniesta, etc. But then this game came forward, and I watched the first 20 minutes. Like I watched this game because I'm real interested to see how Leeds are going to do, because I touted them as potentially the best promoted club of all time. Like I think that they're going to do good things. I don't think they're in any danger to go down. And they got absolutely battered. Like Kevin De Bruyne hit the post with a free kick. I can't think of the winger's name that they signed. I can't think of his name that the Man City signed. He had a great chance. They should have scored a few goals. They should have like put the game to bed. And then Sterling scored a great goal. And Leeds were just like, nah, we're not going to sit back. We're not going to do the traditional thing that clubs do. Like when big teams score against you, it's not the same thing, but you talked about Solskjaer whipping off Fernandes at halftime, that negative mindset. Bielsa's just like, we're just going to push the game to you. And honestly, they probably deserve to win the game with the chances they had. Mm-hmm. Ederson had a shocker for the goal they let in, but he also made some unbelievable saves. But then there was one moment in the second half where a Leeds player, I think his name is Smith. I haven't got access to notes because I'm not my normal PC. But
sure.
There was a chance where the Man City player booted the ball. It was going towards the goal. Leeds player came sliding in. Ball hits his hand, and they don't give the penalty. And I know you don't want to talk too much about VAR. And this game was a really great game of football. Leeds and City went back and forth, and like I said, it was definitely a deserved draw for Leeds, but they could have won. But like, it's just
that's the thing, Fintan. That's the thing. It's infuriating. I think they did make some amendment, or they were talking about.
So they have changed it, have they? Because I missed that.
I mean, because I heard Gary Neville briefly on the commentary in the United game when the Shaw one was given with the arm was here. He was like, I thought we'd sorted all this out, like if it's within the body line. But is this really? Arm within the body line, or it's not? He's sliding down his arms by his side, it hits him. I don't know, and that's the thing. It's like the lack of clarity and the lack of consistency, and punished one week, not punished the next, and deciding outcome of games. And I get it. And what is frustrating as football fans is you want to talk about Bielsa, Guardiola, you want to talk about this incredible Leeds promotion team, you want to talk about a great point and potentially more that should have been earned, and how exciting that is. I'm a United fan, whatever rivalry with Leeds, but Leeds are a Premier League club. Leeds are a big club who deserve to be and should be in the Premier League, and I think. It's nice to have a league where you have Leeds back in it. It really is, and
100%. It's a pity the fans aren't there for it though. Like it really is.
Sure, it really is. Quite tragic actually that they waited all that time and now
15 years or whatever. They just don't get to watch. And probably like the most exciting Leeds team.
Sure,
since they went to the semi-final in Champions League. Right?
But here we are again. Unfortunately, you have to discuss things like that, and it's like the United game, right? Like I don't want to. It was a disgrace, and I don't think you use that term lightly. It was a disgrace, and it continues to be a disgrace. You
definitely use that term lightly. Every single refereeing decision over the last 18 months, Benjamin Spragg's on Twitter, by the way, at Spraggy, just like, an absolute game's gone. Game is gone. The game is gone. I've heard you say disgrace and game is gone hundreds of times.
The game is gone.
Don't say you don't use that term lightly.
I'm just bored of talking about it. And again, it makes me so mad. I was watching on my phone yesterday because I don't have Sky TV here, and I didn't want to be at the PC watching on Sky go on here, but I genuinely nearly threw my phone against the wall. I was so enraged, mate, and I don't want to have to spend footballing weekends talking about VAR and incompetent refereeing. I thought the whole point of VAR was, and here's the thing, here's the sick thing, Fintan. I distinctly remember the pre-VAR days where people would say, oh, well, that's football. You need talking points down the pub. You need talking points where, was that penalty? Was that handball? Did that go over the line? It's way worse now. It's worse than it's ever been. I want to not have talking points. I want to talk about, whoever's signing who's. I want to talk about St. Maximin dribbling at everybody and scoring goals and tearing teams apart. I want to talk about Mikel Antonio, for some reason, is apparently amazing at football. I want to talk about Son being the greatest goal scorer in the history of the Premier League.
You're forgetting
Villa beating Liverpool 7-1. I want to talk about that stuff. Get these decisions out of my football. Fintan, are we done? Are we wrapped? I'm not gonna.
Yes,
we've
are.
no games
that is
next week.
the end of episode 2 of Only Fools and Scores. And luckily for Benjamin Spragg, next week there is no football games. Therefore, there will be no VAR. We could potentially do a transfer roundup.
I think we will
do something else. If anyone else has any ideas in the comments, get at us. Obviously, let us know. I think we're going to develop segments as we go. Obviously, this is still
we're still working on segments.
It's week 2.
There was so much going on this week.
Today, yeah, absolutely. But next week there will be no VAR. That is a promise. We're not going to do the international football because I just can't bring myself to watch it and have to write notes about it. I just don't have that in me. So probably a transfer roundup where we have heard about Manchester United signing Sancho at the last minute, saving the season. It's not all over. There's no way that we can have another episode where it will be so much doom and gloom for Benjamin Spragg. This is surely the bottom. It can only get better as the song goes. There's
it can't get any worse. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button because we need to have you subscribed. If you don't, or if you're listening on YouTube but you'd rather listen somewhere else, by this point we are available on Spotify. We are available on a lot of different listening platforms, probably where you can access podcasts, you can access us. iTunes at this current time of recording is awaiting approval.
Hopefully next few days though.
Hopefully within the next few days. You may already be listening on iTunes. If you're not, keep checking in. Only Fools and Scorers, episode 2. Thank you very much. My name is Ben Spragg, and thank you to my co-host and colleague, Easy with Aces, better known as Fintan Hand in real life. It's been a pleasure, as always.
Talk next week.
Take care.